10:14 in the morning. It's still January 23rd, 2023. The Weaver John C. Roseman, California. What's going on, guys? I am still still trying to keep up with the latest information about the shooting, and it's still the same thing. An old man loses his temper. Actually, he's been losing it probably for some time, and he had to take it out on people his own age. Something happened in his head, either biologically, which they would probably find if there was a tumor in there. But if it was just a disenchanted spirit or something going on with the guy, that's a different story altogether. A lot of people will probably be saying that they're going to go angry and blame the guy, but at this point, no. Yes, he took out a lot of people that will be missed. And it's human nature to condemn the guy and go thermonuclear on him. And he's now facing his judgment and facing God at this point. Was it right for him to take a life? Never. But apparently he may have to have time to think about it. Will there be any potential for him making it up? Or trying to apologize and plead to God for what happened? I don't know. But we're dealing with so much misery right now, and it's not easy dealing with it. The more I keep staying on the national media, they're still talking about more shootings in different places. When you're talking about more than 2 or 3 or 4 people, they're talking about mass at that point, and then, 10 people at a place. That's a mass. It was very courageous for the kid. Well, I consider him a kid anyway. He's still younger than me, so he's still a kid. But the young hero, who, or the two heroes, who managed to disarm the old gentleman, he managed to get him out of the place before he could do some damage. Something had to have hurt this guy one way or another. Something had to have triggered in him. Unfortunately, we don't know what that is. We can't commune with the dead to see what the problem is. We can only go through the physical remnants to see what exactly was triggering him. Law enforcement and other people will still be asking the questions all the way through to see whether or not if he actually does have any answers. And the truth of the matter is, nobody knows. If he left a story behind, if he left a breadcrumb trail, possibly they could understand why he went off the way he did. And maybe they would try to be a little lenient on the spirit. No, it wasn't right for him to take people. It wasn't right for him to take people, but he did. He took people. It hurts a great deal. I know. The town mourned, and so did everybody else who was watching the whole thing. It was shocking. And when they had found the guy a while after in a van, he was still trying to come to grips and come to terms with what he did. He couldn't face the music mortally. The only other option was just to take his life and deal with the Almighty on that. Was he pure anger or was he pure spite? Apparently, from what people had said, that he was a very hard dance teacher that was very hard and critical on people, and he thought people were very hard and critical on him. It was like this vicious cycle going on. But the thing of it is, he couldn't be a dance teacher unless he actually had some patience and understanding. And everything else going on with it. But this guy, he's just. I don't know what was going on with him. I really don't. What was so wrong with him? Why did he do what he did? Everybody else is having problems with this. They're still trying to figure it out. What would be my best guess? Something was eating at him. If he was like this for a long time, then something was really eating out of him for years. Was he a widow? I understand that grief can put a lot of pressure on people, can put a lot of stress and strain. It can actually make the person shift personality a bit from a kind, caring person to a person so much in pain that the only way he can respond to other people is by being angry at them. Can't be angry at himself. He could be angry at God for taking away his loved one. And by being angry at the people around him, he can be angry at God. It's one way of looking at it. If he was denigrated in one way or another, it could have perpetuated in his head somehow. You know, if he had heard or felt anybody else had made some criticisms about him, maybe that could have helped. Maybe that could have done it. I'm no expert at anything on this thing. I do know how my grief has affected me a great deal. Case in point today is I was expecting a heavy duty spraying, but instead I got a light spraying. A light spraying. Which meant I get to stay home. Heavy duty, I get to borrow one of my friends, stay at their place for a few hours, and come right back. I didn't want to do that, neither did my dog. But, I had to be prepared for that eventuality. But I also had to stay my tongue as well. I wanted to say some things that weren't pleasant. I had to pray about that one. And he noticed I wasn't exactly a happy, cheerful guy. The guy coming out to spray. No, I wasn't. You'd be trapped in a damn depressional grief, anger, frustration. For a long while, it becomes like an old coat that's hard to get rid of. It's a favorite scratchy, itching, irritating coat. It's something you huddle with all the time. A reminder of who you lost, or what you lost, or both. Hard to get rid of the jacket because it's so used to you, and you're so used to it. It's like you're both leeches feeding on each other, or feeding off of each other. And it's hard to get past that cycle. Despite how many good intentions other people would have, or anything else they may say to you, it's still hard as hell to get past because you can't. Well, I know my grandmother told me a cancer slugger too lazy to try. That may be true in certain cases. But when you're dealing with something that's totally hurting like crazy, there's no other way to get past it. There's no other way to say it. There's no other way to deal with it but self-defense mechanisms that are still going after people left and right. Even in my own grief and my own pain, sometimes I have to keep up with the facade to deal with family and friends and try not to upset anybody else for that matter because I don't like doing that to them. But I also know how much pain and grief I can still deal with and what the limit is to where I am griping and grumbling and snapping and snarling at people. It's hard dealing with that kind of balancing and juggling act. At least I know it is for me. I'm dealing with it on a constant basis. I can't blame people for what's going on in my life. I can't find fault. I can't tell them that it's your fault. But it isn't their fault. Unless, of course, they're the ones that actually deliberately got into my life and decided they were going to make a massive change by doing something nastily and dastardly and then changing everything else in my life. I can't follow that kind of logic, and I won't. However, that doesn't mean that anybody trying to get under my skin one way or another that I feel, I'm going to be nice and pleasant to it. I'll be snapping at people left and right. The pleasantness and the pleasantries of trying to be nice and smiling at me, it's like, okay, I'm dealing with an enemy here. I got to snap. I got to bite back. Something had it triggered in this guy. I did this a couple of times already, dealing with mass shooters, looking at the guys and trying to figure out what the hell went wrong with you. There is a story in there that should have been told. There was a story in there that should have been said. There was something in there that should have been apparent. Even when I discovered for myself, I can't say it for the other guys. I can try only say it for myself. That if I'm going to be under that kind of extremism, if I'm going to be under that kind of extreme pressure, there's got to be a breaking point where I'm just going to go and hate anything and hate everything and go nuclear at this point. There's only so much a human person can actually deal with. There's only so much I can deal with. I'm not God. Even I would admit, maybe if God actually had a limit, maybe that would put him on our level. Maybe that would put him on a level where we could understand him and he could understand us. Maybe in some way he needed to understand what the hell we're going through. You give them the free will capacity at this point over here. They already screwed that up a while ago when Adam and Eve did the apple thing. Now everybody else has to go through this. Everybody. So now we're going through it. And we're going absolutely stark raving mad at each other and towards each other. Gets to a point in time and space where God decides to say, okay, I want to understand more about humanity, of the people I created here. How do I do this? You send a representative down there. They go through the stuff. And while you're watching and observing the situations going on, you're seeing everything else that the person's going through. You read the soul. You're reading everything else. And you learn. You learn what you didn't know about. You learned about weakness. You learned about strengths. You learned about trigger events. How is a person supposed to go through the pressure cookers? If he was going to be saving all of us and understood what was going through us, maybe it was a good reason that Christ was born. Everyone else that's got to prophesize in this thing. But in order to understand as humans, we have to have an understanding. We need a Rosetta Stone for God that God can actually use to translate what it is to be human, what we're going through. Maybe God did. I know people say, he's God, why would he need that? I would think so. I would think God needed a Rosetta Stone of sorts. That's why we would have what we have right now. This isn't easy for us to deal with, being who and what we are. This is the hardest damn things we have to do. We have to look at it. I'm watching on one particular screen of one of the major news channels, and they're going to be showing two victims of the shooting. And I know there's going to be a flash of trace of anger at the person who did the shooting. I wanted to know what the hell was going on with this guy. If he was indeed a mourner, if he indeed was a griever, that would give him a pain level. And the longer time was passing by without his loved one, the worse it became. Most of a closed-in person. Some days I can function with people and other times I can't. So maybe it was needed for right now as it is. That we all need to be reminded that we all have our limits. We can't deal with the pressure alone. We have to have a release valve of some sort so we don't explode. I want to know if I'm going to be one of those kind of people that's going after another person just because. I don't want to be that kind of person. I really don't. I don't want to go through life being miserable towards each other, because my pain is growing every single day and every single year. I miss my mother. I miss my brother. I miss my best friends. I miss a lot of people in my life. And because I was breaking after Ma, and then my best friend and surrogate mother, one of my best friends anyway, and one of my favorite dogs, finally my big brother. It's like, how else am I supposed to be dealing with this damn shit? I've been dealing with everybody else. Aunts, uncles, grandmother, cousins. Long pause. And then the decade of hell. I couldn't stand any more of it. I know my mother couldn't stand any more of it. She probably killed herself one way or another, just slow death. My brother gets a stroke. Actually, he gets mini strokes in his head. And he vaporlocks between home and the ER. respiratory. His lungs are fine. He just couldn't breathe. I'm not trying to say I'm exonerating the guy. I want to know his story. I want to know if I'm going to be like him eventually. That's what scares me the most. I know. Other people I know, friends of mine would be saying, "You need to get out of here. You need to get out of here. You need to get out, 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 out." You don't understand. I may get out of the place physically. I'm carrying it with me in here and in here. I've got the shrine in my head and in my heart. I'd like to go out and forget that I've got the pain for a short time. I've got the pain, and for a short time, just deal and cope. Just not go nuts. And what hurts the most is really losing it, and then I'm afraid. I'm afraid of what's going to happen. I'm afraid of what's going to happen next that I have no control over. How am I supposed to have control? In what form or fashion? I don't have the answers people are looking at me for. I'm dealing the best I can. What more do they want from me? I don't know. What more can I do? What more can I say? What? I'm afraid. I'm terrified. I'm not as strong and as brave as I should be. Maybe a long time ago I was. And I've been broken. Shattered inside. And it's far easier for me to keep pushing people away over this. It's far easier for me to keep pushing people aside and me just being stuck in this crap. Despite what everybody else would probably tell me to do otherwise. And as for my own personal experience, that's how it's being generated right now. And that's how and why I'm trying to understand this more and more. See, I don't want the damn pills or notions or anything else to screw me over one way or another. I need to understand this. I need to walk through this. I need to go through this shit. No, it doesn't mean I'm the Messiah and going through this damn shit. For my own self. Maybe one way or another I can actually talk to people about this. Maybe one way or another I can actually tell people that this is needed. Other people take pills and potions and lotions to get through life. I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. I'm just dealing with what I'm dealing with right now as it is, as I am right now, and this sucks. But this is how it is. A guy goes out and kills people, then kills himself. He's an old man, had an old life. Somewhere in there, his heart, his soul was broken, never quite healed. never allowed it to heal. And it got to the point where he didn't like anybody and everybody, not even himself, not even a religion or culture he was in, that he was born in. And somewhere in there, he was already snapped. And he was becoming very, very ugly to himself and angry, frustrated because of pain. It's the only explanation I can come up with. And the people in that much pain, or are being in that much pain, usually goes off the deep end. This guy did. This guy did. So I can't tell you any more than that. I don't have any more explanation on it. Except probably to say that I've got no explanation on it. I can only say for right now what I'd be going through right now if I was in his shoes. But would that still give me the right of any sort to do what he did? I can't tell you because I don't have the answer for it. I can tell you from our own laws and traditions and everything else that we've got, it would say no. There is no excuse for taking a life like that. None. But in a screwed up thinking and following down that path, listening to whatever he was listening or feeling whatever he's feeling, he thought it was the only way to get rid of it. Well, by sharing that level of pain with everybody else in this one particular fashion, he got what he wanted. Have everybody else feel as miserable and as lousy as he is. And he didn't give a shit about it either. That's the thing that pisses me off. That's the thing that really pisses me off.